Ed, how you doing, my friend?
Good, Kyle. Good to be with you.
Thanks for doing this, man. And look, I wanted to talk about something where I think actually you and I might agree more, certainly more than we agreed on the issue of foreign policy and Iraq. And that has to do with the Democratic strategy for these upcoming elections here. Now, you're currently in the Midwest, you said, right?
I'm in Minnesota, and I'm going to be back in New York on Monday and Tuesday. But next Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to be covering two races, working up stories on two races that I think are very obscure to the national media, and that's Iowa and South Dakota. And my complaint, Kyle, is that the Democrats are not resourcing these two Senate seats, and they should be. These two campaigns. These are cheap seats to buy when you talk about media purchases. You know, a spot in New York City costs a hell of a lot more than one in Des Moines, Iowa. And I don't know why Harry Reid has not looked at South Dakota. There's a three-way race there. The former governor, who's a Republican, is just absolutely up to his ears in controversy with this most recent visa bill, that there was some money missing there, and his hands are all over his administration mismanagement. I mean, there's a real opening for Rick Weiland, who used to work for Tom Daschle. There's a real opening for Congressman Bruce Braley, who is going up against probably the biggest Tea Partier in the country, although she's disguised herself very well, and that's Joni Ernst. So that's where I'm going, because here's what's happening. The Republicans think if they can win three of these four Senate seats, North Carolina, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Alaska, if they can get three of those four, they think they can take back the Senate. Well, that tells you they think they're going to win Iowa, they think they're going to win Montana, and they think they're going to win South Dakota. And I just think that there's a big opening there for the Democrats to hang on to the Senate if everything is resourced properly. So that's my story next week.
Now, this actually ties in perfectly to the issue I wanted to bring up, which you kind of hinted at it there with Harry Reid, in the sense that I think, and I've thought this for a while now, going back to probably, just right after the Clinton years, I think that complacency kills the Democrats. And what I mean by that is, so let's say they do something good for the American people, legislation X. See, we could even just use Obamacare as an example here. After they do something good, they very rarely come back to that and mention it and go over and over and say, hey, we did this great thing for the American people, and remember, it's the other people who tried to block it and take it away, and they're still trying to take it away. And if we get complacent here, we're going to lose. So you need to make sure you get out and vote. And I break it down this way, Ed. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but this is the way I like to think about it. I think the Democrats should use this three-pronged strategy in all their elections across the country, whether they're more centrist districts or left-leaning districts. Do a facts, polls, and bragging campaign. So why not go out there and say, just to give one example, okay, that the Republicans shut down the government not too long ago when they didn't get what they wanted, and they had a 9% approval rating at the time. Remember that? Everybody in America was like, these Republicans are terrible.
It was a year ago this week. That's right.
So why are now everybody forgot about that? And I actually blame the Democrats for the fact that everybody forgot about that, because if I'm Harry Reid, or if I'm President Obama, by the way, I'm making sure that we all get together, all the Democrats get together, House, Senate, anybody, and we say, okay, guys, here's our strategy. On all the Sunday shows, we go out there, we bring up the fact that the Republicans shut down the government, nobody in the country liked them. Keep saying the numbers, say 9% approval rating, 9% approval rating. They did this. Now, America, do you want that to happen again? If you don't, get out and vote.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with what you're talking about. You're talking about a very aggressive strategy. A very aggressive campaign from the standpoint of doing the due diligence of look at what we've done, look what they have done. And that normally works. Getting people's attention today and holding it is really the hard thing. We got the attention span of about 20 seconds to read a Twitter account, then we're on to something else. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. I think that the social media plays a big game in all of this. We did a story last night, Kyle, on Wisconsin, and I think if you followed the Ed Show, we've invested a lot of time and energy into Wisconsin because I think that the radical playbook that these governors have had has been played out immensely in that state. They have attacked voting rights in Wisconsin, and they have targeted basically the county where it's the University of Wisconsin and making it hard for students to vote. Now, this is a long-term strategy for Republicans. They look at things generationally. They map out where they want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years. They have a long game plan of what they want to do. The Democrats are always not so much long-term as they are reactionary. And it takes a lot of money to be reactionary. And I just think that this is could be a tough fall for the Democrats if we don't get motivated, if we don't recognize what's at stake here. I don't know. This is going to be very, very interesting. I can't wait to hear what people have to say in Iowa and South Dakota next week. I mean, if you look at the Democrats, they're all on populist issues, and they all poll well on populist issues. Everything that they've tried to accomplish.
Okay, you just took the words directly out of my mouth here, because what I was going to bring up next is, if you have the ear of any one of these, Democratic players in these different states you're referencing right now, one of the things that I bang my head against the wall at night trying to figure out why the Democrats haven't done this is the idea of just old school style populism. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Gallup polls or the Pew polls or any poll you want, and you find that, 80% of the American people want to raise the minimum wage. 90% of the American people wanted to do a universal background check right after Sandy Hook. A majority of the American people want action on immigration. They want action on climate change. When you look at Afghanistan, 17% of the American people want to stay there. In other words, the American people are largely anti-war, and of course the Democrats are usually the more anti-war party. So since we have the people on our side, why are we not referencing that? Could you imagine, Ed, if there was, whatever Republican X, Marco Rubio or Paul Ryan, whoever, they see a poll where they find that 80% of the American people are with them on any issue, do you have any idea how many times they would bring that up and repeat it to the point where everybody in the country would know it?
I know it. They're herding the cats is something the Democrats don't do a very good job of, and really never have. It's one of those inexplicable things in politics. Harry Reid is putting a lot of investment into saving Kay Hagan, Mary Landrieu, and Mark Pryor. Begich might be okay in Alaska. But for some reason, the National Democrats, in fact, Harry Reid hasn't even endorsed Rick Weiland, who is against Keystone in South Dakota. He's the Senate candidate for the Democrats in South Dakota. He's against Keystone. He's for minimum wage. He's for workers' rights. He's for the national health care system. He's for yanking corporate dollars offshore and making them pay their fair share. All the things that poll extremely well. And for some reason, he can't get much money out of the National Democrats, and he can't get a big support out of Harry Reid. I can't figure it out. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to find out, though, next week. It's going to be an interesting story. But I share your frustration. I see what you're saying, and it is not an imagination. It's real. It is. There's no question. And I think the other big – here's the tough thing for the Democrats in 2014 to set up 2016. I've said it repeatedly, and that is the state's Secretary of State's job in Ohio. You look at presidential elections, you want to go to the White House, you go through Ohio. I mean, statistically, the way the map breaks down, all of it, you got to win Ohio. We know the Republicans they'll play dirty pool, they'll suppress the vote, they'll do whatever they can. We've got to have free and fair elections and an accurate count in Ohio, and Nina Turner, who is running for Secretary of State, is a model candidate. She's a state senator. I'm sure you've seen her on our shows and other shows. I think she's terrific. I think that's the most important race in the country. I believe that. If the Democrats want 16, if they want the White House. The tough thing about Ohio is that the gubernatorial candidate who's up against John Kasich is just a disaster. There's been some stuff that has come out about him as of late that has not been good, all the way from not even a legal driver's license to getting caught in the backseat of a car in the middle of the night with somebody who's not his wife. I mean, it's been a disaster, and he's at the top of the ticket, and that's hurting. And of course, the voter suppression issues that have come out in Ohio. But it's got to be an all-in situation. See, Bill Clinton, the former president, he endorsed Nina Turner not long ago. We're going to do a town hall, I believe, in Cleveland with the steelworkers coming up before the election and focus on that race. These kinds of things have to be recognized. You basically have in this country 4 mega swing states, okay? You've got New York, you've got California, Texas, and Florida. All right. And then, of course, you have Ohio in the mix. But those 4 big mega states, there's one swing mega state, and that's Florida. We know that the Republicans are going to get Texas. We know the Democrats are going to get New York and California. Who's going to get Florida? That governor's race is huge. The Koch brothers have tossed millions of dollars into that. Rick Scott has spent $100 million trashing Charlie Crist, and the polls are even. And it's going to come down to voter turnout and what you and I started talking about just here, voter enthusiasm, and also recognizing the moment and being motivated to go do what you got to do. It's going to be amazing.
So, Ed, let me ask you, I just want to ask you one more very important question, then I'll let you go because I know you're busy. But on the issue of organized labor, are the unions emboldened or are they disengaged? Because I fear, because of so much corporate money in the political system right now, and Citizens United and McCutcheon, and even going back to Buckley versus Vallejo in the late 1970s, that we have so much corporate money in the system that the unions have been crushed. And, of course, that's horrible for democracy because the unions represent the workers better than anybody else. So are they disengaged, or are they, what's the state of that right now?
No, it's interesting you bring that up. I was speaking with Steelworkers President Leo Gerard last night, and there's going to be a number of conference calls next week and organizational stuff. You are going to see a real groundswell support coming from organized labor here in the last 3 weeks before the election. So no, they're very aware. The Koch brothers, a number I heard yesterday, they have been behind over 40,000 television ads. 40,000 television ads. And they are throwing huge money at trying to win the Senate. And so the CWA, the UAW, the steelworkers, the Teamsters, they're very much aware of what's at stake. They're concerned about voter turnout. There's going to be a huge ground game, a huge social media effort to get out the vote. And so, no, you can count on the unions. You can count on them to make a big play here for November 4th.
So, Ed, for the unions, and I know you do such a great job with them, and I think if you can get their ears, I mean, I've thought this for the longest time now. I know it's a hard thing to do given the current state of politics in America, but I think the unions should only support the most progressive candidates who will not take any corporate cash, because the corporate cash, it really is the cancer in our political system today.
There's no doubt. There's absolutely no doubt. Here's what they're calculated. They look at the competition and just see how far right-wing and outlandish and how anti-labor the opponent is. And they don't want to create, a third-party situation that would peel away from one Democrat or one progressive. But no, they do pay attention to the issues, and they know who they can count on. But they strategically place their efforts to make sure that the majority is not going to be going to the Republicans. Got to run. I got the Ed Show in 15 minutes. Kyle, always good to talk to you. We'll do it again. I appreciate your time. Thanks, buddy.
Ed, thanks, man. It was a pleasure.